You might not be integral to my business today, but your best friend might be someone that I want to do business with. And if I don't connect with you on a personal level, how will that ever come up?
Welcome everybody to another episode of Uncensored Direct Marketing. Today I have Raanan Rosenbaum. He is the biz dev manager of Kendago. Kendago is not exactly a agency as we know it. So you guys, if you're in direct response marketing or if you're online and you have any type of online business, I'm fairly certain you've heard of Kendago. They're starting to make a play and being more well known. They were a little bit hidden for a while, always been there and doing a great job serving their customers. But now with Raanan's help, a lot more people are getting to know the brand of Kendago. So just quickly, Raanan, just so we can answer somebody's burning question, can you tell us, so Kendago is not a media agency, but can you explain what does Kendago do? Like, how do you qualify what Kendago is?
For sure. So the easiest way to say is that we're a performance marketing group, but for just easy understanding, we're not an agency. We're the next step beyond agency. We're basically a long-term solution for an offer owner or brand. We do a strategic partnership. So we're really involved in so many aspects beyond just buying traffic, beyond what an agency would do. If it comes to optimizing a funnel and rewriting the upsell downsell flow, if we need to, put someone on Good Morning America, if we need to get them on a podcast, if they need a celebrity doctor brought in, there's so many different solutions that go beyond the media. And that's really where we step in. We have a lot of different aspects of the business that we do to help our offer owners not just optimize and be profitable, but really grow brands in a very long-term way.
So that's interesting. When you were saying that, you know what came to mind? Like a casting, like somebody's like, like an actor, they have like a talent manager. And that's what it sounds like to me. Like, it's like, okay, you have a business, it's doing great. We can buy you media, but like, hey, if, maybe a commercial would be better, or maybe a podcast would be better. Like you just kind of work with brands to grow them overall, not just buy their traffic and manage their media.
For sure. Like, for example, we've been working with VShred for the last 7.5 years. We do the majority of their paid media along with their internal team. And we really are looking at building a long-term brand. So with a lot of the partnerships and things that we do, it's not just about scaling the brand, because part of that full brand ownership and full, let's say, global awareness of a brand comes into so many different aspects. So for example, at Kendago, we don't touch anything on the email or SMS side, but that's how most of our clients are really monetizing a lot of their traffic. How they're making a lot of their money is on the email on the back end. So we'll help connect them with the top partners in the space who can do that. So even though it's not something we do, we take an active part in it. Additionally, we have, our own in-house creative, for example, our own in-house production, all these different things. So we'll work with clients who might have endless amounts of UGC, user-generated content, testimonials, but nothing's been edited together. We have world-class editors. We'll edit it for you. Maybe you don't have access to those presenters. We'll bring them in. So we do a lot of additional things to really build the brand. Okay. And it is a long-term strategic partnership because most of the brands that we work with are over 5 years. I mean, we've been around for over 17 years and we've never had one ad account banned, shut down, restricted. As you said, we were kind of like a little more hidden before. It's just that we've always gone off of reputation because everything is win-win for clients. So that's part of why we do a little bit extra, because we're always looking to really add value in any area we can.
Okay. Well, I mean, 17 years, that's a lot longer than I thought. I knew it was a good decade, but now 17 years, obviously you guys have a lot of clout, and not having an ad account banned, I think is a big badge of honor. I know you're not an agency. I would say next gen agency, if I could qualify it, next gen, agency. Most agencies have had, an account banned or things closed down and stuff like that. So that's interesting. You talk a lot about branding. So I'm just curious, a lot of people are saying like the next kind of big thing in direct response is actually not direct response. It's actually building a brand. So I'm just curious because you said, VShred and so forth, and these are now brands, more household names and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on like direct response offers versus like kind of concrete branding offers?
Well, I think there's room for everything, number one. I think there's a lot of different spaces for both of us. What's unique in the way that we do things is that our let's say, best skill, although there are many, is really focused on direct response style ad creatives. So we
Okay.
do a lot in terms of video ads, a lot in terms of really the direct response style of connecting with the consumer. It's something unique with us because we're not just looking at VSLs. You know, I work with a number of different e-commerce brands, for example, that have more of an e-commerce style lander. They're not doing a video sales letter. They don't have a text sales letter. But with the power of direct response style marketing and our amazing team of creatives, I mean, we have over 70 people on the creative team internally working, we're able to then really drive traffic and build a brand around something that may not be the classic or typical direct response brand, or it might not be something that, you know, you're going to see on some of the ad platforms and some of the places that we're used to seeing things direct response.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to see a little bit myself, like in my business, I'm starting to see a bit of a shift where people are, starting off as direct response and really, when I say direct response, it's a very direct to consumer type business, guys. If you're listening, obviously you understand this, direct to consumer is like, I'm selling a skin cream. There's not much branding. You're just trying to sell that skin cream and creating a sales letter about it. And whereas a brand is like, I want L'Oreal, I want, Bobby Brown or whatever the case is, like, those are brands. People recognize that name and have like a thought or a feeling about it. And I think a lot of direct response is kind of going there a little bit. Like people are starting to try to create brands a little bit more than, kind of that very old fashioned, I guess, direct response is working less and less, at least from what I'm seeing from the offers, obviously that we're seeing. It still works, like the style, but like you 100%. Said, like not to use V-Shred again, but you said V-Shred. So I'm going to build off that. Like they're now a brand as well. You know what I mean? They're not just a direct response offer, right? So it's possible to do both.
Biggest direct to consumer fitness brand that exists online right now. And I'll tell you what I look for, just to give you an idea in terms of what brands are interesting and what looks right for Kendago. I always look for something in terms of the avatars, something special in the sauce. I want something unique and special. If it's something that, let's say, is like an info product, I want a really strong spokesperson, someone who can really connect with a number of different demographics, who can film amazing award-winning content, and really do things. If I'm working with a supplement, I might be working with something that's really focused on the science around the custom formulation, not just a white label supplement. Something that's really unique. If I'm working with an e-commerce brand, something that has a really strong brand presence, or at least kind of cultural view of what the brand is in the bigger picture. So I'm always looking for something unique in a way for Kendago, something that we can really build a brand around. Because if it's something that, for example, with e-commerce, if it's something that's just a drop ship product, of course, there's a business for that. There's a lot of traffic, a lot of things that can go. I can't build a brand around something that, there's 30 of, that's all, no distinguishing factor that makes it unique or special. But if you have an e-commerce product that is very special and unique to you, that's something I want to learn about.
Interesting. So, I mean, most people, most people can't work with Kendago, right? I mean, there's few brands that can, and bigger brands and so forth. But for people who are kind of more, I wouldn't say at the beginning of their journey, maybe, a couple of years in and really trying to figure out the traffic game and how to get started and so forth. Because you have a ton of experience in just everything, traffic, media buying and all that. I'm just curious, like, what advice would you give somebody who's doing, between $50,000 to maybe $250,000 a month, really kind of, a smallish type of offer? Like, would you say, go for one traffic source, kill it? Would you split up a budget amongst a lot of different things? Like, how somebody who's not an experienced media buyer, for example, maybe we have a lot of people who are like copywriters or marketers and stuff like that listening, and they have to hire people to do this. Like, what would you say qualifying somebody? Like, let me ask the better question. Okay. How would you split up a media ad buying budget? Like, what would you do if you have, an offer that does $50,000 to $200,000 a month? So obviously it's limited.
I think starting with something like that, I would want to find one specific traffic source that I can just make sing. I would want something where we really focus the attention. For example, I'll have someone who comes to me who's having, limited success on Facebook, but it's not getting where they want to go. So they'll start expanding to Google or YouTube. I automatically think that that's not the best solution
Okay.
unless you, let's say, brought internally like the king of YouTube who can do something amazing for you. You're starting to diversify before you have the success. I'm always looking for a little bit more of a proof of concept. So, for example, if there's a brand that's really focusing their energy and time either with an internal team or working with a consultant or something to get somewhere on Facebook, for example, if they can bring it to me and it's going in a nice way, there's some sort of stability, they're doing some decent numbers, it's kind of incubated a bit for Kendago,
Yeah.
then we could jump in on YouTube, we could jump in on TikTok, we could do Snapchat, we could do native. There are a lot of different avenues. So once you can make one thing work well, and there's a bit of a proof of concept in terms of traffic sources, then it makes sense to diversify. And sometimes
Okay.
diversifying in my eyes is not always going the same route. And what I mean by that is there's many top media buyers in the space who work solo. It's not the same, Kendago, there's 150 plus of us. There's a lot of different things going on internally. If you're a solo man gig who's doing, let's say, Facebook, and you do Facebook best, I know a lot of these media buyers will tell you they don't touch YouTube. I would then want to find who's going to be the best at YouTube. Not everyone's going to be the size of Kendago doing the things we've done. I mean, last month we were #1 across all of YouTube ads. Internationally, we're doing a lot of big things, but it's not the case everywhere you go. And I think similarly, if you go to an agency or if you go anywhere, I'd really want to understand what they're doing and what they're doing well. That's why I always tell people to ask for case studies and just really understand what's really happening, because you have to be strategic with growing a brand, and not everyone has the access to a huge team of media buyers, a
For
huge
sure.
team of people internally on the marketing side. And so it really comes down, in my eyes, to being strategic about where do you see the growth. It might be slower, but if you can really crack the algorithm with Facebook and do something big, then you have a much more viable product to take to a YouTube spot, to take to the right media buyers. So maybe if you can really figure something out on your own with Facebook very well, once you get it to scale, maybe you want to take your hand at another traffic source. We do amazing numbers on Snapchat and TikTok, but a few years ago we weren't. So it's like once you start to really perfect one thing, you move on to the next. But I wouldn't try to do it all at once because it
Okay.
just becomes chaos in my
Yeah,
eyes, at
especially
least.
if your budget is smaller, sometimes it's, it's kind of hard to split it up. If you got like 10K, you're not going to be able to do $1,000 in each one. It's going to start getting a little bit small. But, when just touching upon that, like when would you give up on a traffic source? When would you say, like for example, let's say you have a supplement offer. Maybe Facebook is not your best bet. Maybe YouTube's going to work better. Like when do you decide, or is there some best practices to like specific industries do well on specific platforms?
I think there are different ways to look about it. I think it depends on, #1, the vertical that you're focused on. Different products work better on different platforms. I think it
Okay.
depends on what the market saturation of that category is, how other things are going. If you're competing with some really aggressive angles, for example, in a certain vertical, it's hard to compete when people are doing things a little out there, let's say, that are not so compliant. Like everything Kendago does is very above board and very compliant. But the obstacle that leads us to is there's a lot of very aggressive offers in the space. And so there's a lot of things that I can't really touch because of that. I think it's really important to kind of focus as you're moving along on like what you see the bigger picture of your brand to be. For example, if you're running an aggressive supplement and you want to have 20 aggressive supplements under your belt, I would really model after the offer owners in the space that are doing what you'd like to do.
Okay.
Same thing if you're going for a really strong info product or something that is going to be really brand driven. I would look at almost like with a vision board, especially for any new offer owners, where is the success you want to be? If you want to be a big brand in the space, who is that brand? What is that avatar? I think it's really important to understand what your next step is in terms of what you want your brand to be.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. The thing is sometimes we try to reinvent the wheel. Where I say this a lot is sometimes copying what's working is probably going to work better for you than like if everybody has supplements and they're on Facebook, there's a reason for that. It's because they've probably tested it and they know that this is the best, where they make the most money, where it converts most and stuff like that. So don't try to get contrarian and go somewhere else. Maybe try to make it work there because that's where it's already working for other offer owners. And then, like you said, maybe take your budget and start other mediums and other stuff like that. So that's interesting.
Exactly. And if you're looking at a specific traffic source, and let's say you see nothing in the category or vertical that you're working in, I would question that. I would ask other people that you can trust in the space. I would look to other people. Why don't I see, let's say we're talking fungus, why don't I see fungus in this category? Why isn't it on this platform?
Interesting choice.
But because fungus does very well on paid media. So it's one of those things I'm always looking at, for myself at least, what else is out there, because it's exactly what you're saying. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. You want to take what's working and really put your independent special spin on it that makes it great.
Okay. So interestingly enough, like you said, you guys are kind of like a next gen agency. And just in general, and I like that you have a little bit of a different definition because I think there's a bit of a stigma saying that you're a media agency. Just so many people, at least, especially when they're in the smaller levels of entrepreneurship, like their businesses are maybe, like kind of low six figures a month or whatever. That's small in the sense of like it's good money, but it's not like huge brands and stuff like that. But there is a bit of a stigma when it comes to the word media agency or media,
100%.
or agency in general. And the reason for that is I'm just curious, like, what do you think the reason is for that? And as a side question, if somebody's looking to kind of buy traffic and they're not experts at it, would you prefer an agency or would you prefer a solo person kind of hiring somebody in-house?
So personally, I'll answer a few things in terms of like what would be the next step, hiring someone in-house or working with an agency. It of course depends where you're at, but I would say, for instance, some of our strongest partners are people who have a real understanding of the traffic, have a real understanding of what work needs to be done, even though we're delivering a lot of insight, a lot of focus, a lot of directives on so many things when it comes to like creatives. And we offer things like, CRO, conversion rate optimization, where we're really able to split test and set things up the next 6 months in advance. And there's so many different things. But in order to get there, you have to learn somewhere. I find it really smart to work with an independent media buyer if you're not at that level yet or you don't know, to really also be able to learn internally what you need to do. So when you come to someone like Kendago, you have a deeper understanding into why our methods are a certain way. The other thing I'll go back to in terms of just kind of like the reputation, what's out there is not all agencies are the same. And so, for example, one of the reasons why we say we're not an agency is we do a few things very differently. We are a long-term solution because we're performance-based. And what I mean by that is we don't have a sign-up fee. We don't have a monthly retainer. There's a lot of that going on in agencies. It doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean all agencies don't do what they're supposed to do. But for us, and I can only speak for us, I know that if I'm bringing someone on, it's because we feel fully confident that we can take the offer somewhere, that we can scale it bigger than it's going, that we can do something. So we're not taking a monthly cut in terms of a retainer. We're not doing a sign-up fee. We're not saying yes to everyone. Part of our audit process is we take a look and say, and there's no guarantees, but we take a look at every account we're auditing and say, is this something that we collectively feel next year at this time we could still be running? Is this something where we feel like we can really add value? I feel like with some agencies, and again, I'm not trying to say anything negative about any competition or anything like that, but I do see a lot of agencies are in the numbers game of just getting as many clients as they can and getting people in. If you're working with us, there's anywhere between 10 to 15 people working on your campaign day to day. There's a much more concerted effort to really make that campaign scale, to really take things to a different level. So it's a bit of a different approach. Additionally, because we do all these additional things like from a marketing perspective and creatives and all these different ways we'll assist, but also, we are pre-approved for every ad platform with essentially unlimited buying power. However, we have a very robust internal compliance team because we need to keep things kind of above snuff, so to speak. So we're offering a lot more in terms of growing a brand than I've seen with other agencies. It's not to say it's not out there, but it's not as common that you find what we do and the way that we partner with the people.
Well, yeah, and just kind of digging into that is that 17 years for an agency is very long, because I don't know that many that crack 5 years, to be honest. People that, when I started doing this in 2010, there was huge agencies. Like, I'm talking about, like, when I'd go to trade shows, they'd be like sponsoring everything and spending all this money, and they're nowhere to be found. Now we don't even know what's happening. So, I mean, the thing is that, I'm trying to kind of understand what, obviously what makes a good agency and bad. You have to kind of investigate. But if you were just kind of trying to find like your beginner kind of mid-level person to work with, or agency to work with, what's like one or two questions or something that you would look in order to figure out whether this is somebody you want to partner with or not?
Well, I'm always following the data because that's what we do. So, like, for instance, if I were talking to another agency or talking to anyone out there, I would ask for case studies. If you've honestly done all the things that you say you do, you should be able to provide details on that. Now, we have case studies we have them everywhere, in terms of, we have specifically on the ad platforms, on Facebook, on Snapchat, on TikTok, on Outbrain, in all these places, specifically published. I don't expect that from everyone, but for example, if you have a case study, I'd like to know what the brand is. I'd like to know some of the real details in terms of metrics. It's very vague to me to hear, like, we scaled a health and wellness brand. Okay, tell me more. Like, I want to know a little bit more. And similarly, I think in this space, I've really built up a lot in terms of who I can rely on. And I think everyone has different things, but this space, if you have your pillars of people that you can vet things out and you can ask questions, if I were going to work, for instance, with a new media buyer, I would want to question everyone I know in my network or in the space that might know something about this media buyer or have some, track record experience in terms of what they can accomplish.
Yeah.
Because really your word is everything in this space. And that's, I appreciate the compliment in the beginning about getting things out there in terms of Kendago, but realistically, they make me look very good. We've been doing things for 17 years, very, very good. I walk into a room and I already have the pedigree of Kendago behind me. So it's something, for many, many years, we've gone off of reputation alone, because everything we do is focused on win-win for clients. And I feel that might be the obstacle with certain agencies or people who maybe give us a bad rap in the space, because they're more of a numbers game versus focusing on really growing that client.
Yeah. And I mean, not to throw shade at agencies for sure. And I know a lot of people have these debates, when you're starting, it's so hard to pick somebody. Sometimes everything looks kind of shiny and new, and you're just trying to grow your business. And it is a valid way, for them to charge a retainer fee. If you're a small kind of, 6-figure or less offer per month, then, you probably will have to pay a retainer fee, because, you don't have also the clout of a large offer with staffing and stuff like that. So it's not all bad to pay a retainer, but like Raanan's saying, it's, like you're saying, it's, you got to get some case studies. You got to get stuff. Like, I've recently, I look into sponsorships and stuff like that. And I look into, growing my brand and stuff like that. And a lot of documents that I get are so not detailed, like demographic. I figured that's kind of like one of the most important things I need to know if I'm doing something. Like, what's the demo? Like, who am I after? Like, if you can't tell me that, what's your package doing? You know what I mean? Like, what are you sending me this package for? So I could read about all these wonderful things and people on your team. Like, great, awesome, but like, numbers, give me some numbers. And, a media agency at the end of the day should be able to give you numbers, should be able to say, like, this is what we did with him. This is how much we grew revenue. This is, name a couple of brands, and then it should potentially be brands that you want to model yourself after or whatever, right? So
that resonate with you. Like, I'd like you to show me, if I'm coming to you as the agency, I'd like you to be able to show me what you've done with brands like my own, where there's a vested interest in there, where you have somewhere skin in the game to make it succeed, like what your vision is. Because an agency or a media partner, anyone who's really looking to grow things long term, should, in my eyes, have a plan, should have something set up. We've invested a ton of time and energy into CRO, into conversion rate optimization. And with our clients who utilize CRO, we'll set up split tests for the next 6 months in advance. I mean, that to me is really investing in the client, because a lot of things can happen in 6 months. So it's really looking at the long-term solution and kind of having a connected objective with the client, where we see things in the same way of where do we want to grow the brand, how do we want to grow it, and have a really shared interest in terms of the big picture.
I'm just curious. This is not something that I don't know if you have a lot of information about this, but it's something that I always like to ask everybody lately, especially with AI and all its advancements. But do you find that AI is helping you be more productive or do more or be more profitable, or is it causing more work and not adding too much value?
I think that AI is really adding a lot of value, but I think the part that people sometimes lose sight of is AI is not working completely on its own. It needs to be managed by someone who understands what they're doing. So, for example, there are many aspects of the business that are made that much more effective due to AI, but I wouldn't rely on AI or think that that's the solution. I think that it's one piece of the puzzle that really helps efficiency. I mean, I'll tell you, for example, I do prospecting calls with new business all day long. I have the AI fireflies that I use for most of my calls. If I tell you it's a godsend, it's like having a executive assistant by my side, literally minute by minute on a call, and I can get carried away. We can talk about a million things. I don't lose anything. That's one little tool that makes such a huge difference to my day. And there's so many different aspects in terms of that, but I'm not going to take my fireflies and just shoot it out as a report afterwards. I still need to go through and pull, because sometimes, I had a fireflies recently that was calling Kendago and spelling it with a C. Obviously that, needs to be corrected by someone. So it's one of those things. I think AI can be a really amazing tool, and I think it can help a lot, but I wouldn't rely on it as the end all be all.
Do you find that, like, for ad creation and stuff like that, do you find it's like when you're using AI, for example, are you using it to make an ad better, or are you using it to create a completely different ad in order to test a few things?
Really depends. I mean, all options, everything from above, because there's so many different ways to utilize AI. So it's also something where one of the copywriters may write something completely from their own head, but also instruct AI how to make something and see where things lie. Because sometimes you might be able to kind of piece together two different scripts that you get the best out of both worlds. That's why I say I wouldn't rely only or solely on AI.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think people who, are afraid of AI, this is just like a hot take, personal opinion. People who are afraid of AI are usually people who are not very skilled. You know what I mean?
Well,
Because
people are afraid of what they don't know. So there's always, and with AI specifically, I just think about all the sci-fi movies over the years and all these different things. People have this fear that they're coming.
taking over the robots.
Yeah, it's, this iRobot kind of idea. And so I think that there's also, you have to keep in mind that people have this misconception based around Hollywood movies and different things that they get very scared. I think there's a bit of a fear-mongering based just idea around AI that's not always based in reality, because I don't see AI taking over personally.
Yeah, I mean, if you know what you're doing, you're using it to generate ideas to complement your work, not necessarily to take over your work. So I think we wouldn't be doing our audience justice if we didn't talk about your networking and just who you are and how you get around. So guys, if you're listening, add Raanan on social media, follow him on social media. You will see he is connecting people everywhere. Free advice, just helping out, and just kind of all around. So if you're in direct response, I'm fairly certain you've seen Renan's name or his post or anything like that. So I want to dig in a little bit more about Raanan the networker.
Thank you.
Because I mean, like, this is how we met, right? Just through networking. And, I don't remember, I think you made an intro somewhere and I was like, hey, and we kind of connected. And then you've introduced me to people that I love and enjoy in my circle and stuff like that. And just in general, I feel like, your name comes up and there's not, everybody likes you and has like positive things to say about you, and just as a person you're always helping people out, right? And I think that probably brings you a lot of goodwill in the business and a lot of new opportunities. And I know a lot of people who are starting out in the industry, and I see this all over groups, all over social media and stuff like that. People are like, how do I get a client? How do I meet people that I need to meet? How do I do this? So I'm just curious, like, how did you, because I don't remember you before the whole networking piece being, so how did you get to this stage? Like, what are some tricks or some secret sauce for people who are maybe a little introverted or maybe just kind of newer and not, maybe have a little bit of imposter syndrome and stuff like that? Like, what are your best networking tips? Because you're a pro.
Well, first off, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm kind of humbled by how my career has taken off in the space, and a lot of it does come down to networking. I see there being so much insane value in the space that we're in. I see there being a lot of money. I see there being a lot of opportunities to catch money that you don't have in other industries. I see so much growth in so many places where, two things can be true. I can have an amazing business. You can have an amazing business. They can even be competition, and we could still both be profitable and in a good space without having to take each other down. What I found really unique with the direct response space, and it's a lot of people that I can give kudos to, but for example, like Amber Spears and Cody Bramlett, who have been really integral in terms of my development and like where I've come about with things, is it's really about helping people along the way and supporting. And once I started realizing how much of a, not just need, but a receptive audience there was to helping. I've always worked in sales. I've always been great with networking, but direct response is a really unique space. People are really concerned with how to lift each other up, how to be support. And I realized very quickly on, as I got into the space, I really lucked out with direct response that my ability to network and being authentic really makes a huge difference. And I really try to explain to people that, the way my brain works, I always say I'm not on the spectrum, but my brain is, I piece weird things together. So I might be sitting at a dinner with two people who could be doing business together, everything great. We talk business for 3 hours, we get up and they haven't exchanged information to do business. And in my head, it's common sense, but it's not the way everyone thinks. So I've added a lot of value by being able to qualify introductions, bring people together, and my brain retains a lot of things. But I think that you can use the spin, that's my USP, let's say, is the way that I connect information and the way that I can put people together. But there's so many different ways to really network in the space, in finding your own unique space. Like I like to say, you want to brand yourself. So for instance, me helping people, sharing insight, bringing people together, networking works really well. I have a friend who's an offer owner who's doing nutrition and fitness-based stuff, and he's had some struggles in the beginning with really connecting with people because his list isn't built up. He can't really do reciprocals. He's not in a place to fully participate the way he wants to, but he wants to connect with people. Well, this guy is a top-level nutritionist. He's been featured in multiple men's magazines and all these different places and comes with this huge avenue of experience. So one of the things I said to him is start reaching out to different offer owners and offering your services to them. Explain that you can help them with X, Y, and Z. Could they help you with something? And he started getting a lot of bites on it. And people started to really like that because not everyone's thinking of things there. So what I always say in terms of branding yourself is find where you can add value. Not everyone's going to add value the same way, and it doesn't have to be a competition. But what's your specific USP that you can bring to the table that can add value, that can create a relationship? And I try not to be transactional. And what I really mean by that is I've seen this happen at so many events where you walk in to an event and you have affiliate managers running around saying like, what's your offer? What's it performing? And they're asking really like static kind of questions about performance. And that's all the conversation is going to. Maybe if there's business that then get along later, and that's fine. To me, I go in with like the opposite. I want to know everyone, because a lot of big business opportunities that have been brought to me, that have come to me, have come because of connecting with people, just talking to someone, because I don't know who your best friend is. You might not be integral to my business today, but your best friend might be someone that I want to do business with. And if I don't connect with you on a personal level, how will that ever come up? And I feel that sometimes people are not always thinking about the relationship building. I see it done very well in the space, but I also see a lot of transactional aspects to how people are doing things, of like, oh, I'll run your offer if you run mine, otherwise have a good day. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be that simple, because if we're really looking at the bigger picture, I have a large number of people that bring me referrals all the time and are constantly introducing me to things, but it's also because I built that relationship with them. I've presented my own value to them, and they know that if they come to me for something, I'll always help and I'll do what I can. So similarly, like people always say to me, what can I do for you? I say, when you know a campaign that's doing well on paid media, bring it to me. And most often people do. And it's not, I think, a hard ask, but I think that's also something to be aware of without being transactional. I think focus on what your goals are, what the objectives. When I walk into a room, I don't think about specific numbers, but I think I want to talk to every person in that room. I want to understand what drives them. I want to understand if there's something that we could do today. I want to understand if there isn't, what else can we know about each other? Where can things go? Because there's so much value in just connecting with people. Some of my best relationships in the space, and some of the people who are assets to my business day to day, are people who you would not think, I work very closely with some of the top list monetization companies in the space. And realistically, Kendago doesn't do anything in email. So it's really helpful for me that I was able to build these relationships, because they bring business to me, we bring business to them, and we keep this cycle going. But we're also able to rely on each other for, give me some insight on what's going on the email side. And then they might ask us for insight on what's going on Facebook or Snapchat or you name it. But if I was just walking into a room and thinking like, I'm looking for the next hot offer for Kendago, how would I connect with the list managers? Because technically they're not really a direct line to the business I'm looking for. But if I think of it in a bigger picture, they're essential aspects to my business. That's you kind of like, just to summarize all of this, it's the advice that I see and I hear, and I know this is what you do, is you just help others. And at the end of the day, you make sure that people know who you are. So I always tell people, and I do this all the time, if you ever need a merchant account, let me know. But I'm not going in with, hi, I'm Maria, I sell merchant accounts. It's a funny story. I went to an affiliate summit or TNC, one of these shows, like maybe like a year ago or something. And I was at a bar, and I hate doing the bar events, just it's loud. And I'm like, I was there just hanging out with some friends. I turn off business mode. I'm just there. I'm hanging out, having a drink. And, I'm waiting in line for a drink, and some guy's there. He's like, hey, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm like, hey, I'm Maria. How's it going? He's like, good. He's like, what do you do? And I'm like, I sell merchant accounts. Elevator pitch, I sell merchant accounts. And he's like, whoa, I don't need a merchant account. I'm like, great, because I'm not selling you one. And I walked away and he started laughing. He literally started cracking up. He came to find me later. He's like, you're not going to sell me that account. I'm like, no, I'm not selling. I'm off sales now. I'm not selling anything. And we started kind of chit-chatting and laughing because of that. And I was like, why'd you say that? Like, what? Like, he thought just because, you asked me what I do, right? I'm answering the question. I'm not trying to sell you anything. And I took it and made it a joke, because I really did not want to talk shop at that point anyway. I was just kind of tired and just wanted to have a drink with my friends and like people, like coworkers and stuff. But it's hard sometimes, I think, for people to turn it off the business thing and just be a person, right? To be totally transparent, and everyone in my life knows this, I can't stop talking about business. So I will, for like on a weekend at a festival, I'll get talking with someone business. I can't control myself. I enjoy it, But it's again then not being transactional about things. It doesn't always
Yes.
have to be directly
Yeah, that's what I
related
mean.
what I can do for you. It might be something that we're just sharing information in terms of things that you see, trends that we might both see, different opportunities. And also, the more I connect with people, the more I learn things about their business that ends up being valuable information to take back to my team. And the more
Yeah.
that I'm able to sometimes give guidance or assistance with, Kendago, not everything's always going to be ready on day one because we're taking campaigns that are already working well and scaling them to the max. So it's one of those things where it's valuable for me to have conversations also and see so that people know where to come to when the time is right, because I have a bit of a different sales pipeline than, a typical network or someone just looking to test offers for traffic. So it's a bit of a different thing. And I would say some of my most valuable, closest relationships to the space are people who it was sometimes a few months before we got talking to business,
Yeah.
because it doesn't always have to be so transactional. You can do business and be proactive without trying to get everyone into your roster of how I can make money off of them.
Yeah. And I find it's very transparent when somebody's, using you or not using you, but just trying to get to sell you something. I can kind of smell it. I get pitched all the time. So like, especially with somebody that you want to work with, trust me, pitching and like kind of going hard on the sales, like it doesn't work on me. I'm sure it doesn't work on you. It's kind of like, I think we're getting to like a post sales type of environment where even I think on like ads and stuff like that and what people are doing, I'm seeing this more and more. They're not actually selling you. They're just telling you about stuff. And then you kind of go around and figure it out. And I think with networking, it's the same way. Like if you came up to me and were like, hey, send me your best clients, that are doing big numbers. Like I want like, how would that have built a relationship? Like I'd be like, oh, this guy's like annoying. All he wants is like leads and I don't know anything about him. And I don't really feel like it because no, I'm not going to just, most of my clients and my good clients, like they're friends now. Like they've actually like, it's like the first 10 minutes is like, how's your kid or how's this? And what are you doing? How was your yoga class and blah, blah, blah. And then we kind of start talking business because that's how things kind of roll when you want to do business with your friends or people you like. You don't want to just do business with a robot.
100%. And I'll tell you, like, my closest, let's say, people in the space are a lot of media buyers and a lot of copywriters. And I like to learn a lot from them. And I like to see what we can potentially do together if we can. But I'm never just, writing them like, hey, what do you got for me or what's going on? Because the relationships do go deeper. And I have people in my network who, because I've gotten a bit of a reputation for making introductions and helping people and doing that will come about. I've had a few this week, just like, hey, who do you have for me? I need more clients. And it's that brief, or it'll be something along the lines of, your life looks so good. I'm watching everything you're doing online. Can you introduce me to people? And I'm always kind of wondering, like, where was the, hey, how are you? Because there should be something in there if we're actually friends, because I help all of my friends. So it's the kind of thing, but I also know that it's twofold. Like those people who come and ask me where are my clients are also the people who never bring anything to me. And it's not to be transactional,
Funny,
but I'm
yeah.
things, and like there's like people in the space who, I have a deep love of American junk food. I love fruit roll-ups. I love Gushers. It's a problem, but I love them. You can't really get access to them here in Amsterdam. So some people like to send nice gifts. My favorite thing is when someone sends me a box of fruit roll-ups from the States. And it sounds so little, and sometimes it's not a high cost thing, but like when people know what you like, when people are really showing you that they're real friends, Mark Gaudet, who's doing this amazing initiative with the direct response space for creating like a roadmap for people. We've worked on a number of things together. He knows that I drink way too much coffee, and he sent me this amazing coffee bean from Canada.
I have to give Mark a shout out. So it was you. I thought it was you. So I started to cut you off, but it was Balzac's, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Mark is a fellow direct response marketer in the group, and I'll let you say what he's doing about the roadmap because I think it's a good kind of networking segment because I networked with him because of that. But you guys were talking about something somewhere. I saw. I'm always like I'm big on coffee. I like trying different things. So I saw it was a Canadian brand, and I looked. where I'm from, Quebec, it's closed down because,
Oh,
they're just annoying. But I was looking for a brand of decaf coffee. I don't like decaf coffee usually, or I had this idea that I don't like decaf coffee, but come like 1 p.m., I 1 or 2 p.m., I want a coffee, and I realize it actually really screws up my sleep cycle. Like I just can't have coffee in the afternoon. It just destroys me. So I went on Amazon. I was like, well, let me try to get some decaf coffee. So I went on like highest rated decaf coffee, and I saw Balzac's on Amazon, and I was like, hey. And I was like, oh, that's the brand that I heard about. And I couldn't remember who, but now you were talking about coffee, just kind of clicked in my head. It was you and Mark. So I ordered that Balzac's, what's it called? Decaf coffee. I don't know. They have like Swiss water. I don't know what the hell they call it. It is unbelievable. It actually makes me want to drink decaf. I was like, that's crazy. So I now associate a very positive emotion to Mark because of that coffee that you mentioned.
well, I do as well, because to be honest, like, I mean, I'm a cheap date, if I'm honest with you. And like literally like a box of fruit roll-ups gets you far with me in terms of love. So with like Balzac's coffee, that was a really sweet, generous thing that he went out of his way. And like we're mentioning, he's working on this roadmap for people in direct response of like, who are the right service providers to go to for this? What do you need when you're starting out? Where do you go with this? It's a really, I think, incredibly generous and sweet thing that he's putting together and meeting with so many people in the space. But that again shows the difference of not being transactional, because yes, we've talked about a lot of things and I think I've assisted a little bit, but there was no part for me, at least, where I expected him to be sending me across the world like a thing of coffee beans. That was really sweet and generous. And it's something that I won't forget, because the way I operate is when people do thoughtful, nice things for each other. So it's that kind of thing. People who come to me, for instance, and try to offer value. So for instance, not every offer is right for Kendago, but the people who do bring it, I don't forget those things, because I know it takes an extra 5 minutes to reach out to someone and offer assistance when there may not be a direct payout for you or a direct commission. And I don't forget those kind of things. So like, for instance, with Mark, he could probably call me up for anything in the future because he sent me that coffee. And I don't think his intentions was that, but it does make a difference for me because it was a very kind, generous thing, knowing that I have a deep love of coffee.
So now you're going to be getting a lot of boxes of fruit roll-ups, though, I think, after this.
I would take boxes of fruit roll-ups every day of the week. Anyone can send me. I'm more than happy to accept.
Oh, well, I mean, that's awesome. And if we are to summarize this, is that, I think it's just kind of human nature and human kind of, building relationships in general, not necessarily networking. Is just do nice things for people, don't expect back, and then eventually things will come back, right? Like not to be a doormat completely or anything like that, but I've helped, I think, a lot of people. Like I'm in a few masterminds groups and stuff like that, and sometimes I get asked questions, and I always like to give the disclaimer, like, you don't have to work with me just because I give you advice. Like if it's not right, it's cool, like just take my advice, make your business better, and then maybe one day, and maybe not, but maybe one day you'll want to, or maybe you'll know somebody or whatever. Like there's been people that I've given like 30 minutes of full advice. Like I have a friend who called me about his payment processing, like a good friend. And like, I looked at his statements. I'm like, this is highway robbery, man. Like you're getting ripped off. Like you're like, not, I charge like adult merchants less than what you're paying. I was like, what the fuck is that? Like the price was insane. So he's like, okay, I'll switch everything over to you and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, look, we're friends. I'm just going to tell you something very easy. Send your processor this paragraph and you're good. Because I'm like, you have all this tech built out and all that. And if it's just pricing, that's the problem. Like, I mean, we get clients that have a lot of other problems that we can solve. But like, if pricing is your only issue, a lot of times it's just a negotiation. So I helped him negotiate, sent that. He's saving like about $150K per year on his processing costs. He's freaking out. He's like, that's like so much staff and all this like growth. And he's like, what can I do for you? I'm like, nothing. Enjoy your money. Bye-bye. Like it took me 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Like you don't always have to.
You know what? When he has someone for you, he's going to bring them to you.
Yeah.
I really think in terms of, it's a lot about manifesting and putting things out there. But I say like, number one, check your ego at the door. Like, I think that's something I do want to say in terms of networking that I think is important for this space is that It's a young space. You have a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people managing a lot of hats at once. Not everyone in the space is great with follow through. Not everyone's going to get back to you about things. It's not personal. Part of building that relationship and the networking, in my eyes, is to be different. So I've had a time where I don't get back to someone fast enough and they let me know everything that's wrong with me. And that's okay because everyone has their moments. But like if someone ghosts me on a call or someone doesn't show up for something, I try to take a step back and think that's probably not the intentions because this is a fact-based space. There's a lot going on. And I think it's similar to exactly what you're saying of provide value, offer, I'm not sitting all day, 12 hours a day, just helping people for free all day. Like I have a lot of responsibilities and things I'm doing, but I do allocate a certain amount of time to help people when I can, because I also think it adds to the space. And it's something, everything I do to help everyone knows is always under the umbrella of Kendago because it's, they're my forever home and I want to make everything right. But I do think that there's room to just be a person, just to really be different and really be there to support people. And everything you're saying, I think this is why we get along so well, because you're not transactional and you're not looking just to increase your business, but to really add to the space, even with this podcast. So I think that's great.
Yeah, no, I mean, and the podcast was a passion project for me. So it was just like, I just like talking, some people like writing, some people like social media, different things. For me, it's just, I just want to have conversations with people. And every guest that I have, I always learn something. I learn a little bit about media with you. I learn about affiliate management, list management, customer service, all this stuff. It just helps me, grow the knowledge. Oh, like imagine you get I get a superstar, you're not you're a media buyer, but you're in that space, media buying. And imagine how much time I can save that when I have one question about this, I could just ask you and you'll give me the answer instead of me watching endless content and like talking to like Google and AI and trying to find all this out. When I say, hey, Raanan, can you just tell me this? And you're like, hey, this, done. Or if you need something for merchant accounts, you're like, what does this fee mean? And you Google and there's like 50 million things that it could mean. I could say, oh, in this context, it's this, done. So it's also not just necessarily, about making transactions and making money. It's also about saving time. I see my network as a time saver. I can just ask somebody, I need this. Can you help me? I asked in one of the groups, like, I need a stand-up desk. And it's funny because I make decisions all day about things with like for millions of dollars. Like it's crazy. Like I move around millions of dollars for clients and I do all this stuff. But the stand-up desk, I swear to you, it was like a month. I was just like researching stand-up desk and I was like, I can't pick one. I don't know which one. And I put it in the group and somebody's like, this is the one because this, and that. I'm like, great. I just literally click, bought it, and that's it. I was like, why didn't I do this earlier?
I'm on the same page with you because I told you I have a standing desk. I'm talking to you on it right now. And it wasn't a very expensive. It was a couple €100, but I took almost 4 months to decide on the right one. It needed to be the place. It needed to be the thing, there's certain, because it benefits. We live to work. I mean, I had plenty of fun. I get to go to cool things through work. I'm on a yacht all the time. I have all these amazing perks, but I also work upwards of 12 hours a day. I mean, there are many days that I'm working 15, 16-hour days. So we want to be comfortable as we're doing these things too. So I completely understand the reservations on what do I need to do with the standing desk? How do I get the best?
No, but it's silly because sometimes I have to buy something that's like $50 or $100 and it'll take me like an hour or 2 hours. And I'm like, what am I wasting my time for? But just for your update, I did order my stand-up desk. It's coming on Monday. So soon I will be standing up probably and talking. So yeah, no, it's the power of your network, right? And like you had mentioned.
But it's a game changer also for me, the standing desk. I was starting to have some lower back issues with how I was sitting all day. And like, it gives me the opportunity. I mean, maybe your audience sees me moving around a lot, but I've been moving around the whole time we're talking. So it's also a nice thing for me that because again, we're married to the work in a way. I don't want to say there's nothing else in my life. There's so much richness, but I love what we do and I love the industry.
Yeah. So just to kind of close it up and just, a final question, because we're talking about networking, but one thing is, we met online, we had connected, and then we did meet in person, which does really help. I find when you're able to kind of touch somebody, see their face and all that. But for people who are for example, not able to, go to any events, or maybe they live too far, maybe they don't have the budget or anything like that. What are maybe some tips? Because we did know each other, before we met in person, we did connect and so forth. It just got a little bit closer after you meet in person. But what are some tips and some ideas that you have for people for networking online specifically?
I think the big thing is to really schedule in calls. I know that sometimes it can be daunting when you have a lot of admin work, other things you have to do, campaign management. There's so many things, but the same way you're talking, and don't get me wrong, because I connect better in person than I do on a camera. So I like going to the shows because I can get a lot more accomplished. However, it's not always in the time. It's not always in the budget. There's so many different things that make, reasons why you're going to travel or not. If you can't travel, I would say make sure that you're scheduling calls each week. Make sure that you're connecting with new people because it always presents new things. So like we have all these amazing avenues like the direct response Facebook group where you can, put out there if you're trying to connect with people of something. Maybe you want to know some new media buyers, you're looking for copywriters, whatever the case, maybe someone in a similar vertical. So I think it makes a lot of sense to do those. And I think also you want to connect with the people in your network, really devote and dedicate time and energy into building. I mean, invest in those relationships. I have a number of people in my direct network, you included, who I talk to on a regular basis because it is important to keep those relationships alive. There's so much going on in the space. It's so fast moving. You might connect with someone great in January and it's amazing, but if you don't put some time and effort into that relationship, it might be gone by May.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I think you really need to nurture the relationships around you and really focus on expanding your network.
Yeah, I guess follow up, right? Follow up is what I'm getting. Like follow up when you meet somebody. And it happens to me even at shows when I meet people face to face, we have a great connection. And then like a month or two goes by and it's like we haven't connected again. And you're like, oh, what's that person's name again? What did they do? And it just kind of fades.
There's momentum and you got to catch it with people. And even like I have friends in the space who have become close friends because I followed up with the friendship in the beginning. I'm not saying it's all on me, but had I let it go, they weren't necessarily driving the same interest in the beginning. Yeah. So it's the kind of thing I always say in terms of networking, be different, be special, and really add something to whatever room you're in.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's interesting. So did you find you were able to make some decent connections with people just by meeting them online? Or do you always find that kind of, you have to meet them in person?
No, I mean, some things change in person. I mean, I'd say my best friend in the space, she and I became much closer when we met at a trade show, but we were already talking prior to that. And there's a lot of relationships. I mean, I have a good friend of mine in the space who's flying out to Amsterdam this summer in June. We're doing a week in France and we're doing all these things together. We've been talking on the phone for the last 2.5 years. We've never met in person still to this day.
Okay.
So I think that there's a lot of, and this is someone who's very near and dear in my personal life and my network and all of this. So I think that it's not always reliant or contingent on you have to meet in person. So that's why I think it's really important to utilize whatever avenues you have around you. So if you can't get to shows or you're somewhere or working for a company that doesn't have the budget or you're new in the space and do everything you can to hustle to connect with people in whatever medium that is. So if it's on Zoom calls like this, do it on Zoom calls. It doesn't have to be in person.
Yeah. I mean, for me, my situation is not budget wise, but it's family wise. I have a young family and it's just tough to like just pick up and go like I used to in my earlier days. I'd go to like shows every like 6 weeks or something like that. Now it's like maybe twice a year. I try to strategically go to as many things as a big of an event as possible to see people. But it's not possible. But at the same time, it's still, connecting with people like you, for example, or connecting with other people and like just, hey, what's up? Or just a quick, like, how's it going, on Facebook or Twitter or wherever, any social media. But people tend to forget. And I think a lot of people use this like maybe budgetary constraint or the opportunities. Oh, I can't go to trade shows. It's just too difficult. It's too expensive. My company doesn't do it, like you said. Whereas you could, I think we met during like COVID era, right? Like around then.
Yeah.
And nobody was traveling, right?
We were friends online for a little while before we met in person. And I think meeting in person did make things better, but it's not always, like I said, like my birthday trip this summer is with a friend for 2.5 years who I've never met in person. Like there's a lot of relationships like that in the space. So I think that there's a lot of value in utilizing whatever networks you have, whatever resources and avenues. So it doesn't always have to be in person.
Yeah. Well, Raanan, this was awesome. And everybody, I'm going to have Raanan's contact information below. I would suggest, I don't want to like get people to like start following you and driving you crazy on social media, but I do think that you have a great social media presence. Like you have jokes, like you make me laugh. And I just, it's nice sometimes when you're like, I always like to like screw around for like 15 minutes a day on social media. Like I do it more in the evening, but in the day, I do like almost scheduled. Like I will not do more than 15 minutes. And you are one of the people I like to see what you're doing. And like, I like to kind of comment sometimes. And, it's nice for people to forget their everyday and so forth. So I do encourage everybody listening to take a page out of Raanan's playbook. You're relatively new in the industry, but like for the amount of time you've been in this industry versus how many people know you and know what you do and know who you are. It's crazy. I think you have a bigger network than I do at this point. I've been doing this for 15 years.
I don't know about that, but I appreciate it.
So I'll have Raanan's contact information below. Listen to this episode, follow. I hope this is inspirational for everybody to understand that your network is your net worth without sounding too cheesy, but it is. And 100%. You can get really far by knowing people and talking to people and so forth. So thank you, Raanan, so much for your time. It was super valuable. And have yourself a great day.